To walk us through it's just been kind of a negative story when it comes to renminbi. How much further upside do you see in dollar China now?
Not a lot. I really think that we focus a lot on dollar RMB rate, but the real story has been on the basket, right? So if you look at the nominal, the CFED basket, for example, we are now at 2022 low, which is, the depths of the COVID zero, the fear on China growth. If you look at the real effective exchange rate, that is the BIS basket, for example, we're actually at the lowest level since 2014. So valuation-wise, RMB is starting to look cheap. And I think, the stimulus hoped it will start to help pull back dollar RMB a bit from the current level. And I think it's a good sign that so far RMB has been a bit less sensitive to negative data surprises coming out of China. So, for example, yesterday with the credit growth data, you saw a bit of a bounce in dollar CNH has come back down. So I really think that the story from here is really the China stimulus and the fact that, RMB has already weakened a lot on a basket basis. And there start to be a bit of a value there on a tactical basis.
How far do you think, in the absence currently of stimulus, we're going to get probably done deal according to some, has the actual devaluation of the RMB really played into a role of actually stimulate the economy? Is it been used as a tool as it was in 2015, 2016?
There is a degree to that, right? So if we listen to the PBOC, what they told us recently, they seem a bit more comfortable with, FX depreciation. They seem a bit more comfortable with allowing the market to find the equilibrium. And that is why we haven't seen much in terms of PBOC resistance in the fixing at all, right? So it has been in line with consensus. But then again, when we listen to what we heard from the PBOC last week, the reason why they has not panicked yet is because FX volatility has been, relatively under control. The weakness in RMB has been relatively gradual. And more importantly, they think that eventually Fed is at the end of the tightening cycle. So when the Fed stop hiking and that pull down the dollar, that will pull down dollar RMB too. There is a degree of policy stimulus coming from RMB depreciation, and that has already played out via the basket and the real effective exchange rate. But if, FX volatility becomes out of hands again, then surely we'll start to get some form of PBOC resistance.
So if we are at the bottom, what's cheap now? So maybe the Chinese currency, what else is cheap?
Yeah, so the other currency we really like to look at the moment is the Taiwan dollar. So recently in EM Asia FX, I think people have pay a lot of attention to Korea because, you see dollar RMB moving up and dollar Korea just moving down, right? Completely divert from this usually very tight FX relationship. Yeah. Like on the May 17 when dollar CNH break 7, a dollar Korea was going lower. So that kind of break in the correlation is something that's quite interesting, and that's driven by equity inflows and the enthusiasm around the AI team. But, we have been bullish Korean won, but it's now hit our target of 1270. And we think that risk reward really, support Taiwan at this point. Because, similar to Korea, Taiwan also share a lot of the positives when it comes to equity inflows. Recent year-to-date inflow has been strong. And, unlike Korea, historically, Taiwan dollar doesn't have high correlations to, RMB, to the general risk sentiment, or even to the yen. So it's less, sensitive to the downside risk. And, there's also a local driver when it comes to LIFOs because I think they are under hedge. Yeah. And if spots start to move lower, they would have to chase that dollar Taiwan lower move.